like to introduce our candidates for the evening. From left to right, Mr. Todd Vogel, Ms. Kody Jaeger, Mr. David Lent, Mr. Scott Marcellin, excuse me. I mutilate my name all the time too. They even misspelled it in the paper. I'd like to remind everybody that there's a restroom right here through this door. Another restroom is through this door and to the right by the pool table. Now then, starting with Mr. Vogel, please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for District 2 Supervisor.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Vogel, and I'd like to thank the VFW for hosting the forum, and I'd like to thank you all for coming. I'm running for the position because I'm passionate about this community. And as a longtime local business owner, I'm invested in the health and prosperity of our area and the happiness of its residents. I want to be more involved in our community so that I can better support its success. I believe my leadership experience and experience in the community will be assets to the Board of Supervisors. I'd like to talk for a moment about my qualifications for the position. I've been on the Planning Commission for the past 6 years as Supervisor Pucci's appointee. I'm currently the Commission's Vice Chair, which means once in a blue moon I get to chair the meetings. Additionally, I've been self-employed my entire working life, currently as the owner of a store here in Bishop with my wife, who has worked there for 34 years since we arrived. Prior to the store, my career has been as a mountain guide and a guide service owner, as well as in outdoor education. Also, my community service here has a lengthy history. I'm currently a team lead for the Sheriff's Search and Rescue Team and just completed 2 years as team captain. They have term limits, so I got termed out. I'm still one of the most active members of the team, and the team is busy. The past 2 days, we've had 2 calls on Mount Whitney. In fact, there's one going on right now. My board experience goes back to the 1990s when I served a term on the Bishop Chamber of Commerce Board. And since then, I've been continuously on various boards, mostly local boards. In 2015, I started a program we call the Eastern Sierra Youth Outdoors, which is a free-to-them, professionally led outdoor camp that gets kids from our area out on a 6-day climbing and backpacking trip. This year it's happening in late June, so if there's any parents who have children in that age group, 13 to 18, who may be interested, let's check in after this forum. I direct the Bishop Ultra Foot Race, which happens just before Mule Days and brings 350 runners to town, along with their support staff. Typically a group of about 600 people come to town the weekend before Mule Days. Crazy runners may they be. Through my past work, I have a lot of experience working with the local land management agencies, the BLM, the Forest Service, DWP. So I know the challenges of working with these agencies, and it can be very challenging. I've worked for 33 years with an organization called the American Leadership Forum. I know it as ALF, which brings community leaders together from across all spectrums to work on community issues. My work with the Leadership Forum has heavily impacted my leadership style. With ALF, I've learned to have difficult conversations when necessary, when there are huge ranges of opinions in the room. As a leader, I value a collaborative process that hears all the voices and which seeks to ask the right questions as much as it seeks to find the most right answer. I'm looking forward to the forum, and I want to thank you again for attending. Thank you.
Do I just go ahead and start?
Yes, Ms. Jaeger, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, again, I just want to say thank you to the VFW for allowing us this opportunity. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. And this opportunity definitely to let everyone know one of the big reasons why I'm running is to bring people together for one, but also to collaborate with the entities that I don't believe we're listening enough to make these big decisions. I grew up here, I'm from here, I grew up on the Bishop Height Reservation, and I remember a time when the economy was strong. We had stores, businesses. I never saw this type of closures up and down the valley. I also remember a time when our community was strong, going to the rodeos, the parades. I feel like there's definitely been a division in our communities that we need to bring back and build back that collaboration together. But also we need to start thinking of new ideas, because the tourism has definitely increased since when I was growing up. So that means more revenue. Yet now we have struggling businesses and less businesses. I do think that it's the time for new ideas, new perspectives. And if we keep doing the same things and putting the same people in with the same ideas as before, then nothing's gonna change. So, you know, one of my favorite quotes is, nothing changes, then nothing changes. And I think it's time. I think it's time for that new perspective. Just a little bit about my qualifications. I'm currently the Assistant Tribal Administrator for the Bishop Paiute Tribe, and that's like running an entire government. I'm familiar with working federal, state, and local governments. One important thing to note is that I have many years working with grants. Before I worked here, I worked in Los Angeles as the Regional Director for the second largest TANF agency in the country, where I worked closely with the federal levels and with grant opportunities. Right now, there's a lot of grant opportunities out there and available, and I want to be a part of that board of supervisors that starts to take advantage of those, starts to take advantage of the resources that are always here, that have been here. And the time to do that is now, and I'm hoping that everyone will start to will begin to see that and actually support me. Thank you. I'm Kody Jaeger. That's with a J, J-A-E-G-E-R. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jaeger. Mr. Lent?
That's for us to share.
Good evening. My name is David Lent. I want to thank VFW Post 8988 for hosting this event, and a big thank you to all the veterans that are here and that are in our community that have done so much for all of us. I am an enrolled member of the Bishop Paiute Tribe. I'm a lifelong resident of Bishop, born and raised here in Bishop. Some of you may have known my dad. He was a Lent Senior. He lived here all his life, pretty much. He was a World War II veteran, a Navy man. And he worked at Chalfont Press for 35 years. He retired there as well. He was actually tribal chairman for the Bishop Tribe for approximately 20 years. And looking at the community and understanding what we have in our community is very important. I think it's difficult when we see places closing down. This whole pandemic has come upon us in a way that has really been negative to our communities. And hopefully we are starting to heal from that, and we get back to who we were and who we are as a community. I spent 45 years of my career working with tribal governments and tribal communities. I've spent my entire career collaborating up and down this valley with tribes, with cities, with the county, and working with different programs that we've developed collectively together. And that's one of the things that I think is very important when we do go forward, that we all hear each other's voices. We're all in this together. We've lived together for how many years? And we never really talk to each other, and I think it's time that we do that. We need to work together collectively. We have issues that affect all of us. Water, land acquisition, many things, education, working with our elder population, and what do we do with that? I think it's important that we all understand each other and listen to each other and work together. We're much more powerful if we're a unit together and not two separate communities. And I think it's time that we understand that and we work with each other in a positive way. So I have experienced in my career working with Toyabe Indian Health Project. I was the director there for approximately 18 years. I was there and we brought the first dialysis unit into this community. We developed a pharmacy And we just, in the last maybe 6 years, built a new facility out on CB Lane for the entire population. I know that dialysis, the way that we were able to get dialysis in this community, because there was nothing here, was to involve both the Indian and the non-Indian population in that. And we all came together and we all knew that we needed this type of health care for all of us. And so collectively, we worked together, we went after identified programs that could help us, and we made it happen. And now the dialysis unit has been here in our community for, I imagine, the last 10 or so years, or maybe even longer. I worked with the tribe as their director in relationship to, actually I was the chairman of the Economic Development Corporation when we built the first casino out there. And some of you may visit the casino once in a while. I try to stay away myself, but you never know. But at any rate, that was something that we felt could be a good economic engine for the tribe. So the tribe could work with community around them and actually benefit everyone as we move forward. I went totally away from my speech. But what I want to say is, because I have the experience, I think that both the native community and the non-native community can work together collectively. I think that we can do things together and make things work much better for all of us if we're in this together. And so by bridging division and embracing the diversity, we build community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lent. Mr. Marcellin?
First, I'd like to thank God. You would too if you survived meningitis at 18, cut in half at 35, and COVID pneumonia a year ago. I want to thank the VFW Post 8988, Commander John Underhill, Senior Vice President Mark Williamson, Quartermaster Joshua Nicholson, Junior Vice Derek Banna, Senior Vice President Bart Williamson, and Adjutant Sean Williamson, and all those who have served past and present, including my family members, my father, and 4 of his brothers who served this country during World War II, and one who served every skirmish between World War II and 6 tours in Nam, who after his 6th tour was thanked for his service, and then said, "You're done." And at that time, they didn't know what combat fatigue was. And 9 months later, he was gone, found in a gutter out here in the street. We don't do enough for our veterans, and we need to do more. So, all this being said, thank you for what you do for us, so tonight we can voice our freedom of speech. Thank you for putting this town hall together. Thank you to the other District 3 candidates for making time to be here tonight. I'm running for District 3 Supervisor because I have a servant's heart. It's time for change at Inyo County. We don't need career politicians running our county. We need people that care about the people in the county and that want to hear from the people of Inyo County, that want to listen to the people of Inyo County. I am a 3rd generation Owens Valley resident and business owner who has spent my entire life working to make Inyo County stronger for my children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, who also call this valley home. I have been building relationships for over 50 years with all the local agencies in the Inyo and Mono County area, state and federal Working individually hasn't worked. We need to work together. Partnerships need to come together with all the agencies. The tribe, Inyo County, the city, the county, Mono County, the town of Mammoth, everyone. We need to start working together. It hasn't worked. I have a background in mining, light industrial, water, wastewater, medical, infrastructure, telecom infrastructure. I graduated from high school here in VUHS in 1980. I went on to engineering school, and in 1982 I dropped out and came home to pursue my passion, which was our family business. I knew I only had a short time before my father was going to retire, and I wanted to buy our business. I had my journeyman's card in 1982, and in 1987 my wife and I bought our business. I understand the decisions that can be tough. I wasn't allowed to cross picket lines by SCE. I had to negotiate union contracts, so I do understand what we're up against when we have to make those hard decisions. It's time to bring back common sense thinking and new ideas to the boardroom at Inyo County. We need someone who will listen to the people of Inyo County, not just people of District 3, but everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcellin.
Scott Marshall.
All right, at this time, I'd like to remember, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, that until 7 p.m., the candidates will be asked a predetermined set of questions. From 7 to 8, there'll be questions that are written down by you. The boxes in the back of the room, pencils, paper provided. Just drop your question in there, and we'll see if we can't get to them between 7 and 8. First question is going to go to Ms. Jaeger. All of you have mentioned recently housing being a major issue. This also affects our veterans population across the board. What is your vision for addressing the issue up and down the county?
Well, that's definitely an issue everywhere. We're experiencing that not only on the reservation, but definitely in the city of Bishop and up and down the valley. One of the solutions is to be more collaborative with some of the ideas that the community has on the solutions for affordable housing. You know, I do feel like it's all connected. We need affordable housing because it's hard to live and afford the current rents, because it's related to, can you find a job or a career that provides livable wages? So like I was saying earlier, this is all connected, and it's time that we start thinking strategically, and the time is now to begin building the businesses that we want to see and building up our workforce that we want to have so that they can work in these businesses. I know Inyo County has the Job Source Center. There's grants coming to help with affordable housing, help with the infrastructure, to help with the economy. It's the Community Economic Resiliency Fund grant, I believe is what it's called. It's coming. And again, I want to be a part of that solution, because it's possible. It's possible with the right people up there who have the tools to make that happen.
Mr. Lent, same question. All of you have mentioned recently housing being a major issue. This also affects our veteran population across the board. What is your vision for addressing this issue up and down the county?
Well, once again, I think that collectively, if we work together and working with the tribes and working with the entire community, we can make affordable housing happen. we have to look at where we can acquire land, because then land is a premium around here, and there's not much of it that's available. So if we identify that collectively, and we go after that, and we secure land, then we go after affordable housing. And I've spent a lot of my years in working with grants. The last 4 years, I've worked with the tribe over on the other side of the mountain, and we brought them over $8 million in grants in the last 5 years. So I think if we do this right, and we do it collectively, we can develop housing, and we can work with our veterans to get into those housing projects, if you may. But I think it's really a collaborative effort of all of us. If we can all come together, we have ideas, we have concerns that we can all address, and we move forward collectively. And I think there's an opportunity for all of us in developing affordable housing if we do it in a manner that affects all of us, and we work collectively to make that happen.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin. All of you mentioned recently housing being a major issue. This also affects our veteran population across the board. What is your vision for addressing this issue up and down the county?
Okay, housing is a major issue, and like they said, it's not just here, it's everywhere. First, Inyo County needs to look at what the city of Bishop did with some ordinance changes, so we can get some smaller dwellings changed over to rentable housing. Second, there is some work being done right now out in the Carbide, in the old housing area for Carbide. If we would have been ready, we could have had some infrastructure grants ready to be placed. So infrastructure could be being installed right now for some low income, and we need to quit using the word low income. We need workforce housing. Every time you start saying low income housing, the people of Bishop start cringing because they think of one thing. We need workforce housing. We need housing for our construction workers. We need housing for our hospital workers. We need housing for our Inyo County employees. We need housing for our DWP workers. They're coming up and living in hotels, and then they turn around and they go home because they can't stay here. So, yes, there's grants available for infrastructure. We need to get on the stick. We need to be more proactive instead of reactive in Inyo County. We need to start pulling our head out of the sand and start coming into the 21st century.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, all of you mentioned recently housing being a major issue. This also affects our veteran population across the board. What is your vision for addressing the issue up and down the county?
Thank you. I'm guessing that most people in this room would agree there's a housing shortage in this county. And this affects me personally at our store. In the summers when we hire, we get busier in the summers. When we hire in the summer, we have employees who live in their vehicles. I have friends who work in healthcare here, and I think many of us have heard stories about how hard it is to find and retain professional staff in healthcare because they can't find a place to live. It's a big problem. And there are no easy answers. There's not any one answer that's going to solve this problem. So we need to look at a suite of solutions which collectively might add up and make a dent. That's the hope. You may or may not know the state passed a law in the last 2 years, I don't remember exactly when. Basically, you can build an accessory dwelling unit in your yard if you have the space. That's not the solution for everyone. Not everyone's going to want to do that, but that's one possibility. The Silver Peaks hasn't broken ground yet, but when that gets completed, that's 77 housing units. That's affordable housing. And I agree with Mr. Marcellin that this is across the spectrum. The homeless rate has gone down a bit, but over the last 5 years, it's remained more or less steady. And so There's opportunities there to help find homes for people who are either temporarily or by choice unhomed. I don't have the answer to this one, but I think we need to ask the public, are short-term rentals appropriate in this environment? There are short-term rentals, and they do take a bite out of the housing market. We also need to recognize with increased housing, if we build housing stock, we're putting more pressure on some of our infrastructure. The waste treatment plant is nearing capacity, and at some point that's going to have to be dealt with. And I'm on the final countdown, but I have finished my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Vogel. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Lamb. Many of us, including governments, put our money where our priorities are. According to Inyo County's 21-22 budget, the overall budget is $126 million. The total budget of the Veteran Service Office for Inyo County portion is $103,770. To put that in perspective, that is 0.08% of the county's budget, and the county's recently nearly that amount to Amaka. Even if you add in Mono County's contribution and other state and federal funds, the total is $175,289. That is 0.13 of the total budget. It is estimated the veteran population in Inyo, Mono County is between 9 and 11%. This budget priority has been the case for many years. Would you be willing to change the priority of our county to help veterans? If so, how will you do that? And if not, why not?
Yes, I would, absolutely. I think it's horrific that the budget is not there for veterans. I believe that veterans deserve an opportunity and deserve more getting out in terms of being out in community and working with community, meaning that veterans, in terms of health care, I think there's opportunity there as well. And I believe that looking at funding opportunities for veterans is there as well. I believe that looking at the overall population of our communities and the veterans that live in our communities, I think it's time that the county takes a look at what we are doing with the veteran population. I know that my father was a veteran, worked all his life, and deserved to have a better opportunity in our communities, and deserve that opportunity to live a life that is great for them. Looking at housing, looking at better care, and veterans in this community deserve that. I believe that I have a background that could help in that sense, and I would work in relationship to the county to make those things happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin, I'll read the question again. Many of us, including governments, put our money where our priorities are. According to Inyo County's 21-22 budget, the overall budget is $126 million. Total budget of the Veteran Service Office for Inyo County portion is $103,770. Put that in perspective, that is 0.08% of the county's budget, and the county recently gave nearly that amount to Amaka. Even if you add in Mono County's contributions and other state and federal funds, the total is $175,289. That is 0.13% of the total budget. It is estimated the veteran population in Inyo, Mono County is between 9 and 11%. This budget priority has been the case for many years. Would you be willing to change the priorities of our county to help veterans? If so, how will you do that? If not, why not?
It absolutely needs to be changed. As I said in my opening statement, my family has served. I wasn't given the opportunity to, but they kid. I have a friend right now, and I'm not gonna say her name. Her son is dying right now from the shots that were given to go over to Kuwait and Afghanistan. He has less than a year to live. Thank you for your service is not good enough. We need to do more. That percentage is not enough. If we can get a grant for a diversity services officer, it's an unfunded position, but it's a grant, and we can hire somebody, then we can find money for our veterans. We need to do more for our veterans. Our young kids go over there, they come home, they're dying. We need to take care of them. I'm sorry, but we're not doing enough for them. That's my answer.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, repeat the question. Many of us, including governments, put our money where our priorities are. According to Inyo County's 21-22 budget, the overall budget is $126 million. Total budget for the Veteran Service Office for Inyo County portion is $103,770. For that perspective, that's 0.08% of the county's budget, and the county recently gave nearly that amount to AMACA. Even if you add in Mono County's contribution and the other state and federal funds, the total is $175,289. That is 0.13% of the total budget. It is estimated the veteran population in Inyo, Mono County is between 9 and 11%. This budget priority has been the case for many years. Would you be willing to change the priorities of our county to help veterans? If so, how will you do that? If not, why not?
My answer there is, of course, the veterans should always be a priority. But I know that the budget is, if you view it as a spider web, if you pull on one web, you pull on something else. So I don't see a bunch of extra money sloshing around in Union County's budget. And so my question would be, are there unmet needs? If there's unmet needs, then certainly we need to meet those needs, and we need to find the money somewhere. I'm also, and it's another one where it's an open question, I don't know what other resources are available. Are there state funds that we're not going after? Are there grants that we're unaware of? What are the opportunities? So, in short, of course, that should always be a priority. If they're misprioritized, then that's something that needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jaeger, do you need to repeat the question?
Sure, why not?
Many of us, including governments, put our money where our priorities are. According to Inyo County's 21-22 budget, the overall budget is $126 million. Total budget of the Veteran Service Office for Inyo County portion is $103,770. Put that in perspective, that is 0.08% of the county's budget, and the county recently gave nearly that amount to AMACA. Even if you add Mono County's contribution and other state and federal funds, the total is $175,289. That is 0.13% of the total budget. It is estimated the veteran population in Inyo Mono County is between 9 and 11%. The budget priority has been the case for many years. Would you be willing to change the priorities of our county to help veterans? If so, how will you do that? If not, why not?
I absolutely believe that it needs to be looked at because more resources do need to go to helping the vets. I love the idea Mr. Marcellin gave about first step is hiring someone to help reach out and look for those grants and funding opportunities. That's one step. But another one is definitely to look at the priorities right now that are being missed, the need. Unmet needs are important when you're justifying money. You want funds, then show us where you're going to use them and show us why you need them. Again, I have years of experience with grants, and I know how that works. And not only do you request those funds by showing those needs, you got to show that it was implemented successfully. That's definitely something you always look at. You can't throw money at something and then not monitor and manage the program. It has to be effective. And those are the things that I would hope that, if elected, would be transparent. If you threw $100,000 to a program, let's look at the results in a year. I could speak personally, I have an uncle, my uncle's a Vietnam vet, and I see him every day struggling with pain management, and his inability to navigate successfully medical care. There's been multiple times where he hasn't had a ride because he has to go to Reno. I've taken him to USC. It should not be this difficult to manage a veteran's pain that served our country. So absolutely, that would definitely be looked at and examined.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin? Next question. In July of 2020, the Sheriff's Administration closed the Veteran Service Office with no plan in place other than to send veterans down to Bakersfield. This office was closed for nearly 9 months until Supervisor Roger took initiative to get it opened and hired Mr. Green. For years, the Veteran Service Officer has been in need of at least a second personnel as the VSO handles office hours, training site visits, meetings, appointments, and so on. Will you commit, or at the very least, advocate for a second staff member to help with the VSO? If not, why?
Yes, I would commit for a second officer. We have too many vets in this area. Past and present. Too much paperwork, too much to handle. I think government needs to change the way they handle their money. We need to run on transparency. Departments at the end of a fiscal year, too many times go out with the fear that of cutting their budget. They'll go out and buy chairs, filing cabinets, whatever, to get rid of money because they're afraid their budget's going to get cut. We need to change that, and we need to start coming up with a way to make it to where they can be not penalized, but where they can get that money put in, not into the general fund, but into a fund, to where this money can go to things like this, to where this money can be used for a good cause. This money doesn't need to go out and just be blown on ticket items with the fear that they're going to lose it, or that they could use it at a future date when their budget needs it. We need to change the way government is being run. That money can be used for programs just like this, for our veterans, for our homeless, for anybody that needs it.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, can you repeat the question?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to answer this one similarly to the previous question. I think vets should always be a priority. And my question would be on this, as supervisor, are there unmet needs? Do we have the right number of staff? If we don't have the right number of staff, then we need more staff, and we need to find a way to make that happen. What other resources are available? Are we missing opportunities? Do we need to reprioritize? But if we discover that we do not have the right number of staff, we need more, then we need to make that happen.
Thank you. Ms. Jaeger, do you need me to repeat the question?
Sure.
In July of 2020, the Sheriff's Administration closed the Veteran Service Office with no plan in place other than to send veterans down to Bakersfield. The office was closed for nearly 9 months until Supervisor Rozier took initiative to get it opened and hired Mr. Green. For years, the Veteran Service Office has been in need of at least a second personnel as the VSO handles office hours, training, site visits, meetings, appointments, and so on. Will you commit, or at the very least, advocate for a second staff member to help the VSO? If not, why?
Yes, I would definitely commit to adding another staff member. It's about like what Todd said, it's definitely about, if you need the staff to have successful services, then you need to hire those people to ensure those services that are absolutely needed, that the community needs are being met. Being short-staffed is happening up and down the valley and happening in almost every business. You know, finding that capacity to fill these vacancies is tough. But, you know, going back to what you originally said, I would hope that by now, when you said the only plan was to have them go to Bakersfield, you know, not only looking at hiring someone to help with all the needs so that the services are being met, but also to make sure that that doesn't happen again, that we're not going to close someplace to send somebody that already has transportation issues and needs all the way to Bakersfield. So being prepared, and I think that's what a lot of us have been doing because of COVID. You know, trying to find ways that we don't have to close businesses, offices, finding those alternatives. And I'm hoping that at that level, that's being done right now.
Thank you. Mr. Lent, can you repeat the question?
I think I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Yep, I really believe that you do need a second staff person. But I also believe that there needs to be an assessment of what is going on with veterans and an assessment to determine what the need really is. And the county has funds that are in excess, then they should be able to free those funds up to work with veterans, to develop programs, to make things work for veterans in this community. I know that in tribal community, there's many veterans. I was just talking to Kody's uncle, who has been a combat veteran and has to travel, and he has difficulty getting around. And he needs that kind of support. So there's veterans in both of our communities that really need that kind of help. And I think, once again, collectively, if we work together, we can really make things happen in this county. The tribes can push the county, so can the veterans. We can team up together, and we can work on funds that might be out there and available, but we don't know they are out there and available. I know that there's grants that may be available so that you can look at creating better programs for veterans, maybe looking at how you would get veterans to services that they need, because a lot of times they're not here in Bishop. But I think it's important that we all work together on issues that affect all of us. And I think it's important that if the county has available funds, that we use them in a way that supports our veterans in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, next question. What is your leadership style? How would your subordinates, employees, or coworkers describe you?
We'll have to ask them. My leadership style is diverse, I would say. It's context dependent. There are times where leadership is, I'm up front, leading the way. There are other times where a leader is more in a supportive role, allowing people to be up front, employees, for example, making mistakes, and mentoring them. In either case, I value collaboration and hearing diverse points of view and working together to come up with as close to consensus as we can. I'm a pragmatic leader, I think people would describe me as, and open to listening, and a good coach. I'll leave it at that. Okay.
All right, thank you. Ms. Jaeger, what is your leadership style? How would your subordinates, employees, or coworkers describe you?
My leadership, can you hear me okay? Oh, there I am. My leadership style, I would describe it in two ways. One, if you talk to the employees, I'm definitely a coacher. So I like to coach employees. I believe if you show them and give them all the tools to succeed, they'll be successful. And I do believe most employees want to be successful. I'm a big believer that every company, every organization is only as good as its employees. They are essential. In a leadership role regarding when I have ideas, when I believe in something, I will keep pursuing it until somebody tells me something that changes my mind. And I invite that. I love feedback, good and bad. I tell people all the time, change my mind. If I'm going in a direction that you don't agree with, tell me. Tell me. Other than that, I will fight, and I'm very passionate about things that I believe in, and I'll find ways to make them happen. You know, another way I like to describe my leadership role is there's definitely an image that I like to, I'd love to get a poster of. I'm all about quotes and those symbolism and styles. It's a guy on a coach, you know, with a bunch of horses, you know, a bunch of people pulling him, and that's old style leadership. And then the other style leadership is that leader's down there pulling in the front. And that's what I believe in. I believe in knowing exactly what the struggles are of every single employee, and that's where I do believe there has to be more focus on if I am selected for that seat.
Mr. Lent, what is your leadership style? How would your subordinates, employees, or coworkers describe you?
Rough, tough, get out of my way. No. I'm actually, I believe, a very collaborative leader. And I'm always willing to listen to everyone. Sometimes my open door policy, people will criticize me because I allow too many people to come in and sit and talk with me and listen to what they have to say. I'm a certified mediator, so I can sit down and listen to people and hear what they have to say and definitely do active listening. I want to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and where they're going with their ideas. I know that leadership and working with your staff is very important. I think it's one of those things where we say when we're doing or creating a collaborative effort, we're talking about hard on problems, soft on the people. It's really important that your people believe in what you're doing and you believe in what they're doing. And collectively, you can move that group with you. If you're not with them and you're not working beside them, then you're not really doing what you need to do. There's times in my leadership style, working at Toyabe, and I was a CEO there, I would get out of the way. I would help to a certain degree, and I worked with our docs, our dentists, and when it was time for me to get out of the way and let them do their work, that's what I would do. So I believe I'm a very collaborative leader, and I listen to my staff, and I work with my staff so they can be the best that they can be. Better staff, better service to the community.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin, what is your leadership style? How would your subordinates, employees, or coworkers describe you?
I have a different type of leadership style. I believe God first, family second, work third. I started teaching in 1991 after we got out of the union. I started teaching my own apprentices. And I found that it made for better all-around electricians. And that way, they weren't specialized in just one thing. They became all-around electricians. They have to go to school. They still have to go through the apprenticeship program. They still have to pass their test. But in doing this, they appreciate more of what they get. I've had 7 go off to Southern California Edison. 3 go off to work for the Department of Water and Power. 2 have gone off and opened their own business here in the valley. 1 is up in Reno. 1 is working in a mega solar company in Southern California, Texas, and Hawaii. 1 opened a business in Texas and is running 6 trucks now. It's not about me, it's about them. What do I do to enhance them to make a better life for them? So it's never been about me and what I can do. It's about what they can achieve if they just put their mind to it. That's my leadership style, making a better life for them and a future for them.
Thank you. Ms. Jaeger, next question. It's highly likely the state and/or federal governments will want to implement future mandates and lockdowns. Do you agree with lockdowns and mandates as we have seen through the last 2 years of COVID?
I agree with the necessary steps that sometimes we have to take for public safety. And if they are coming down from the state, I know that if you violate those mandates or ordinances, however you want to describe it, there could be penalties to certain organizations. But I believe it's a conversation that has to happen. I think that the mandates, should they come again in the future, right now they're calling it the endemic. So if you're saying these mandates may come down to another COVID wave, I think this is a different conversation. I don't believe what happened in 2020 will happen again. But I think that we need to have a discussion because there are differences in how different people want to respond to how to keep our families safe. I think everyone wants our families to be safe. We have different ways of achieving that, but it has to have a conversation. There are certain risks to, for instance, the Native American community is hit harder by COVID. There's statistics out there, so taking precautions, more precautions may be necessary depending on the areas, the residencies, and the individuals that are at highest risk. I am a believer in public safety and will do whatever it needs to happen to keep our public safe with the conversation. And there has to be that data that I think we all want to see is regarding the risks and what other possibilities and solutions do we have available. And that goes for the businesses as well. Wondering any kind of other options that they can have besides closing, but doing it safely, staying open.
Thank you. Mr. Lent, it's highly likely the state and/or federal governments will want to implement future mandates and lockdowns. Do you agree with lockdowns and mandates as we have seen through the last 2 years of COVID?
I believe for the safety of all of us, there are mandates that we all have to live with. But I think there's a choice that we all make too. It's up to the individual of how they're going to deal with these mandates. And I know that you could get yourself over your head and you could affect your family's safety if you aren't looking at these mandates in a fashion that protects your family. And I know that we've had several people in our communities that we've lost over the last 2 years to this pandemic. And I think that some of them, if they would have just dealt with the mandates, it would have been a different story. But it's not my choice. It's the choice of the individuals of what they're going to do with it. But my choice is to be safe around my family and be safe around others. So if I'm ill or I'm not feeling well, I stay away from people. Make sure that I'm taking safety precautions for everyone out there. And I think it's all of your decision as to what you're going to do when it comes to the safety of your family and the safety of everyone around you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin, same question. It's highly likely the state or federal governments will want to implement future mandates and lockdowns. Do you agree with lockdowns and mandates as we have seen for the last 2 years of COVID?
I would have voted the same way Inyo County did. I would have wrote a letter against it. But I believe in the freedom of choice. I believe in the Constitution and the 28 amendments. We should have the right to choose. Like I said, I work in the medical field. I work at Coyote, I work at Northern Inyo, I work at Mammoth Hospital, I work at Valley Health. I don't make my employees go there. They have the right to choose. If they don't want to go there, they don't have to go there. They can choose whether they want to go to that job or not. We have to mask and we have to test to go to these facilities. They have the right to choose if they want to go there or not go there. I choose to work at these facilities because I choose to save lives. I've been working at I've been working at Northern Inyo Hospital for almost 50 years. Mammoth Hospital for almost 20. I choose to save lives. So I choose to do what I have to do to continue to save lives. So we have the right to choose our freedoms. And I want everybody else to have the right to choose what they do with their life.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, you may repeat the question?
No, thank you.
All right.
The pandemic has been an incredibly challenging time for all of us. More than 1 million people dead. I'm guessing that almost every one of us knows somebody who's been personally affected by the disease. At the store, the shutdowns were terrible. I mean, we think back to March of 2020, there's so little we knew about this disease. We remember wiping down surfaces, and we'd go shopping and then wipe everything down when we came home. Probably, I'm sure not everybody did this, but there was a huge range of response and a lot of missing information. I'm guessing the question is mainly concerned with the COVID pandemic. I can imagine future pandemics, and who knows what those are going to be like. To me, this is a case where individual rights and collective rights clash. But I do believe we're all in it together, and I think the collective right and the public health. I don't want to armchair quarterback what the state and county did on this. I think that we have public health experts that have a lot more expertise than I have, and I'm going to defer to their expertise. I think the decisions that were made were well-intentioned and made with public safety in mind. Not to armchair quarterback, but in similar circumstances, just to answer your question, I would say yes, I would be supportive. As terrible as the shutdown was, I mean, it's a store, we're shut. All the businesses like that. It's an untenable situation, but we didn't know what we were dealing with. We know a lot more now. I would end with, if we have mandates again, I want to know what the trigger is that initiates them, and I want to know what the trigger is that makes them go away. I just want clear metrics.
Thank you. This will be the last question before we take a break. I'm going to start with Mr. Lent. The use of public lands is essential for our communities, for recreation, and for our economy. This includes hiking, biking, camping, fishing, boating, off-highway vehicles, motorcycles, climbing, skiing, horseback riding, and packing, and so on. How will you deal with outside agencies wanting to further close or making it difficult to conduct business on public lands? Do you support the closing of public lands?
And no, I don't, unless there really is a need to close whatever public land that may be out there and being abused and being overused. But I think public lands are what they are. They're public lands. They're for all of us. And we all live in this community together. And that's why we live here, right? To go out, enjoy what's around us, and be out in community, and not have to run up against a sign that says you can't go any further. And it's difficult when you're out in around the whole area and you come up on spots that are closed, and are they really closed by the Forest Service or the agency that's closing them? Or is someone just putting a fence or a gate up so you can't get by that? Sometimes I think that happens. And I think that public lands should be open to everyone in this community. I think that we all enjoy what's out there, but I know that things can be abused. And if people are out there and they're abusing what God has given to all of us, then we should take care of that. We should regulate what happens in some of these areas so that we can control what people are doing out in our beautiful country. So I think I would not like closures, and I would only support it if it was necessary and land was being destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin, the use of public lands is essential to our communities, for recreation, and for our economy. This includes hiking, biking, camping, fishing, and so on. How will you deal with outside agencies wanting to further close or making it difficult to conduct business on public lands? Do you support the closing of public lands?
I do not support the closing of public lands. This reminds me of when I was about 9 years old in Lewis Station, when we first moved to this area, one of the wealthiest people in this area. Had a barrage of attorneys on retainer, and he said, those mountains up there belong to the federal government, and when that white stuff up there melts, that becomes water, and when it comes across the state land, that becomes water that comes to the state. And that water doesn't hit the aqueduct, then it becomes the owner of DWP. He says, I am a member of the state, I am a person of the state of California. He said, we all are the people of the state of California. We are the people of the United States of America. They just manage that up there. They just manage that land that comes across. We might as well put my attorneys to work, and I might as well get a little bit of that water for some trout ponds. He got that water for his trout ponds because he proved that he was a people of the state of California. We are the people of the state of California. We are the people of the federal government. We should be able to use our lands. The packers bring out trash that gets left in. They should be able to use the backcountry just like anybody else. We should all be able to use the public lands to be able to use it the way we want to use it. Now, like Mr. Lent said, it shouldn't be abused. It should be used properly. We should be respectful. I was taught to be respectful when I was a Boy Scout of the lands. We need to respect the lands, but we need to be able to use the lands openly and freely.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, you give your report.
No, thank you. I'm good. My entire career has been dependent on public lands. Through the store, as a mountain guide, as a recreationalist. It's why I moved here. I've spent my life starting as soon as I can walk on public lands. So, of course, I do not support the closure of public lands. Fortunately, public lands are open to everyone. The key is good management. And there's a range of ways that lands are managed. And we need to make sure that we have good public land management and appropriate designations and education of the user. We need to provide opportunities for everyone. There's one thing that's come up in the last few years that I think is worth considering here, which is seems like we're in this era of mega fires, and the last 2 years, the forest has shut completely across California and the Southwest. And to a store that's dependent on recreationalists coming here, that has been, I would say, as severe an impact on our store as the pandemic has been. And so I would like to see the Forest Service be more granular in their approach to these things. I understand the need, again, for public safety. And last year, at least in the fall, the explanation was we're so strapped on staff, if there was a fire near the Owens Valley, we wouldn't be able to respond. That makes sense to me. But a large part of the Inyo National Forest is not very flammable, and I think there's mitigation that could have been made short of an entire closure. For instance, ban overnight use. Even that would have been better than a complete shutdown. So that would be my one qualifier to what I said earlier. No, I don't support closing public land.
Thank you. Ms. Jaeger, do you need me to repeat the question?
Oh,
No,
sorry.
I think I got it.
Thank you.
I would support the closure of public lands when it's necessary, when it's needed. I would also require the information that's being used for those closures and make sure it's consistent. And then also that the reason for the closure is promoted prior to. It shouldn't be a surprise when somebody's enjoying the lands or the public lands and all their uses and not be aware of where those closures are. You know, a lot of these issues that we're discussing tonight do come down to communication and collaboration. Again, that's another thing that definitely needs to happen. Conversations need to happen, and we need to hear everyone regarding those closures. And also regarding the ways that we are protecting, preserving, and respecting all these lands. I think that conversation needs to happen, and it has to include everyone. I think there's some voices that are missing, definitely from not only our tribal communities, but also the residents that live here. I think we should get their feedback and find out what's working and what's not. You know, hearing about trash and some other things that are happening out there, and the question being asked is, who's responsible to clean that up? Do we have the staff to do that? Who's supposed to enforce that? Who's supposed to monitor that? Those are all great questions. I believe that we can absolutely have a balance between our tourism and the respectful treatment and preservation of our lands so that we all, this generation and the next, can continue to enjoy them.
Thank you. These are the questions written by the public, and we are going to start with Mr. Marcellin. As we ended the last round with Mr. Lent, this round starts with you, sir. With Inyo County being the largest employer in Inyo County, how will you minimize the government overreach that burdens private small businesses via regulations, fees, taxes, etc.?
Well, I'm a believer that Inyo County needs to reach out to business. We need to make some kind of an attempt to make tax credits or some kind of way to bring business back to Inyo County. I've heard in the past that Inyo County, when bigger business or medium-sized businesses come to Inyo County, that they've told them, you need to go somewhere else, we can accommodate you with employees we can't accommodate you with housing. They're not willing to work with them with tax structures or anything else. We need to start working together to accommodate business. We have water agreement land that we've never explored to get housing. We need to start working with DWP and quit fighting with DWP so we can get that land, so we can start developing it for housing. We have land in all the towns in the valley that we can use for housing. Why have we not explored that? We need to start sitting down at the table, pull up our pants, and sit down as adults and get this accomplished. We need this so we can move forward into the 21st century. Together. I use the thing is one cord is very weak. If you take multiple three, you bind it together, it becomes a rope. It becomes strong. If we put all the entities together and we bind it together, we will become strong and we can do something, we can accomplish something. We need to start working together to make this work. We need to make this happen. We can't make the businesses stronger till we can fix the housing issue to get the people here to make this work.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel?
Sure, go ahead and repeat, please.
With Inyo County being the largest employer in Inyo County, how would you minimize government overreach that burdens small businesses via regulations, fees, taxes, etc.?
Okay, thank you. I was going to say I'll loan Mr. Marcellin 20 of my seconds. Okay, minimize burdensome regulations. First, I think we need to look at 4 levels here. I guess I see the federal level, the state, the county, and local. I don't think we're going to do much about burdensome federal regulations as county supervisors. So I'm going to scratch that one off my list. The state, it seems like in this regard with regulations, the supervisors have written letters, and I'm not quite sure what effect that has. So as far as business goes, I think part of what needs to be done is educating business owners, particularly new business owners, what the regulations are. Because if you look at them as burdensome, and they are, many of them, you're just going to be frustrated. I think it's best to just teach and learn how to deal with the system. But secondly, mitigate. If there are truly superfluous or redundant regulations, we need to identify and remove those as possible. It would help me to answer the question if there were some examples. And I can just say, as a business owner and the guy who does the books, yeah, I deal with regulations at all these levels on a day-to-day basis. And if I was in a state of being where I looked at them as burdensome, it would suck out my will. So it's very hard for me to look at them as other than something I have to learn to live with. And complain as possible when I see that there's an opportunity to simplify things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jaeger, would you like to repeat the question?
Sure.
With Inyo County being the largest employer in Inyo County, how will you minimize government overreach that burdens small businesses via regulations, fees, taxes, etc.?
First, I would definitely find out what exactly the control is that the Board of Supervisors has over those things, over the fees, how much flexibility is there in determining the fees and taxes. Also, regarding the businesses, it comes down to, again, just like Todd said, we need to begin that education for those that are running businesses or want to start new businesses, that entrepreneurship, and be able to navigate some of those fees and taxes. Or, again, it comes down to going after those funding opportunities that can provide real relief for the businesses here. Again, there's other grants out there, just like the one that's gonna be a big opportunity right now for Inyo County and other districts in California. It's, the Community Economic Resiliency Fund is a solution, and it's, needs to be taken advantage of. That and other opportunities are out there. To be able to provide that true relief that the businesses are looking for, and again, I'll bring this up again, it does take that feedback and collaboration with those that frequent these businesses up and down the valley, and that's the residents. Again, I feel like we need to collaborate and start to make those meetings happen so they could have some more guidance in what businesses are going to be coming into the valley, but also, more promotion of those tools that are available, the resource center, the business center that Inyo County is providing. Those are the tools and resources that need to be promoted more. Yeah, and again, hearing a DWP being brought up, that is definitely an opportunity that I think we're all looking forward to those conversations about looking at what lands can be given back for all uses, including housing.
Thank you. Mr. Lent, with Inyo County being the largest employer in Inyo County, how will you minimize government overreach that burdens small businesses via regulations, fees, taxes, etc.?
I think it's first to understand what overreach would be done by the state, county, cities, or the feds, and understand what that would look like, and then educate business owners so that they understand what they could live with and how they can deal with the concern of what you would call overreach. And if they have solutions, then I think that's up to the county, and it's up to citizens as well as business owners to really push for what they might consider working with concerns of overreach. And I like the idea of looking at lands and working with DWP to maybe acquire lands so that you could have a good possibility of maybe developing more business and working, once again, collectively with all the tribes in this valley, as well as every community, so that we could be a stronger voice and not so much fight with DWP, but work with DWP collaboratively so that we could come to some solution that could work for all of us and help businesses in the Orange Valley.
Thank you. Next question, start with Mr. Vogel. Inyo County saw millions of dollars come from state and federal government during COVID. Would you be in favor and initiate a forensic audit on these funds and publish a public report for your voters and taxpayers? If not, why?
Well, they're federal dollars, they should be the ones looking for where their money went, shouldn't they? But, yes, that was a joke. I would think, of course, if there's any question about how funds have been used or misused, we all deserve to know how the money's been spent, where it went, and how it was allocated. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jaeger, would you like to repeat the question?
Yes.
Inyo County saw millions of dollars come from state and federal government during COVID. Would you be in favor and initiate a forensic audit on these funds and publish a public report for your voters and taxpayers? If not, why?
Yes, I think that would I'm surprised that that's not available somewhere right now, actually. If you look at the dollars and the funds that were received, they usually do have a report that's necessary. They have to be accounted for. So that's probably somewhere. Again, this comes down to promotion of the resources that are available at the county level to begin that transparency that the community needs to see, that all residents need to see. But then again, like what you said, that'd be somebody initiating that. Yes, so I absolutely would initiate that. It would be more about finding the information, because I do believe it's out there and it's just not being shared. Yeah, so yes, it's absolutely being charged with forensic audit.
Thank you. Mr. Lent, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I have it.
Okay, thank you.
I know that if you're receiving federal dollars and you're spending federal dollars, that you're required to get an annual audit. And with COVID money, it might be a little different, because I think that funds are available. They came out quite rapidly, and then they came out sporadically at times, but you still need to be held accountable for those funds. And I believe that an audit is necessary to determine where all those funds were spent and who received those funds. Did our communities benefit from those funds? Did the funds that were out there really serve a purpose, what they were meant for? Meaning, healthcare in our community is always very important to all of us. And I think a lot of those funds were out there supporting healthcare in our community, and I think that those funds definitely need to be audited with all the other funds that were available. I think that we can get lost in the weeds when we start talking about COVID dollars, but we need to really focus on where those dollars were spent and really hold people accountable for what happened to those funds. I've been involved in audits before that were very serious audits of millions of dollars, where we had to account for all those dollars, and we did, and then had to present that back to the federal government in terms of where those dollars went. So yes, I do support a quality audit of what has happened with COVID dollars in this community.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin, would you like me to repeat the question, sir?
Please.
Inyo County saw millions of dollars come from state and federal government during COVID. Would you be in favor and initiate a forensic audit on these funds and publish a public report for your voters and taxpayers?
So the answer to that question is yes. And it's not the federal government's responsibility to do that. I am running on transparency, and it is because the money came to Inyo County. It is public information. It's the right to Public Information Act. We need to provide that service to the people of Inyo County. So those audits need to be prepared, and the people of Inyo County need to be given where that money came from, where that money was spent. So, and yes, like Mr. Lent, I have been audited by the state, by the feds, by the DIR. It's not a pleasant thing to do, but you need to provide all that information. It's no different with taxpayer dollars. It has to be done. And you are entitled to know where that money came from and where it's spent. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. Start with Ms. Jaeger. Would you infringe on constitutional rights of your community for the sake of funding, retention, or receiving more funds with conditions that violates their rights.
Can you repeat that question?
I don't want. Would you infringe on constitutional rights of your community for the sake of funding retention or receiving more funds with conditions that violates their rights?
I have to say that seems so vague, because I would need to know what infringement would you be talking about? I would never promote an infringement on our Constitution. So that would just need a little bit more clarification. I would like to say, though, that defending the Constitution and promoting the values of the Constitution come with this position. We will be taking an oath of office, and I would take that very seriously. Again, if this is coming down to public safety, and if there are mandates coming down that are, I guess, are interpreted as a infringement, that's another conversation, again, where I believe we all want the same things, and we need to have those conversations together. Because the time is now, we need to be working together, we need to be getting all of our resources together, and we need to face all of these challenges that are coming together, and that means hearing all the voices, all residents, our tribal communities included.
Thank you. Mr. Lent, same question. Would you infringe on constitutional rights of your community for the sake of funding retention or receiving more funds with conditions that violate their rights?
Could you repeat the question? No, I'm just kidding.
No!
Could you clarify it a little more? No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't write it.
I don't really think I would want to take anyone's right or privilege away from them to go after funding or to do something that wasn't constitutionally sound. I think that you're in a position, if you're elected, to abide by the Constitution, to abide by laws, to abide by rules. And I certainly would not jeopardize the Constitution or anything of that nature to go after funding. Because I think it would be not in the best interest of community members, of myself, of everyone around me. So, no, I would not jeopardize the rights of anyone to either seek funding or do something that was totally against the Constitution. I would definitely support what's necessary to make things happen in the legal fashion.
Thank you.
No, you do not.
Okay. I was getting so used to reading.
Well, the question is vague, but I would defend the Constitution, and I would take this job very serious. You have to take an oath to defend the Constitution and the Constitution of the state of California. I've already had to do this in 2 positions that I already sit in. I would defend the Constitution and the 28 amendments. So you need to know what you're defending, why you're defending it, and what it's being presented to you as. But I'd never take money in the means of violating your constitutional rights. You need to listen to your constituents, but you need to listen to the constituents in the entire Inyo County. not just your constituents. You need to get a voice from everyone. It's not just based on your district. You need to be listening to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, give me a second, please. I'd like to remind everybody in the audience, please put your phones on mute. Thank you. Do you need me to repeat the question, sir?
No, thank you.
Okay.
As a disaster service worker volunteer through search and rescue, I've already sworn the oath to uphold the Constitution. And we all did, well, at least they made me swear that again when I filed my papers for this office. I think that's a part of the process of when you file to defend the Constitution. No, under no circumstances should a constitutional right be taken away from citizens. The conflict at the root of the question is, if I understand, funds for rights. I can only assume the context. But I would add this, when a question like this is in conflict, we need to respect the rights of the majority as well as the rights of the minority. And we need to try and reach a consensus, but we're only going to find an imperfect consensus. This is one of these questions where there's many right answers, and no one's going to be happy with the final outcome. Not everyone is going to be happy with the final outcome. An imperfect consensus.
Thank you. On to the next question. Start with Mr. Lent. Our small businesses are being crushed by Sacramento, putting more taxes, fees, safety codes, and higher wages. How do you plan on helping your small businesses?
Well, first off, I would talk to small business owners, find out exactly what they're going through and what their needs are. And I do believe that, and I've done this before, travel to Sacramento, meet with those lawmakers, meet with those individuals that are putting burdens and potentially crushing some of the local businesses, and talk to them about what they're doing in this small community, and get them to understand why there's a need that's much different than if you're living in Sacramento or if you're living in a small rural community like we have here in Bishop. I think it's important that we understand what the need is, and collectively, once again, pull together and travel to Sacramento. And I think that a Board of Supervisors have the power to do that, and sit down and really have those discussions that really support our community and support our small businesses. So I think it's important that we have our voice, and our voice is heard, and that all of our businesses in our community participate, and they travel with you so they can speak their voice as well. So it's important that we as small town people in rural communities have our voice heard in Sacramento, where I believe it counts and we can make change.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin, do you need me to repeat the question?
No.
I can do what Carl said and say, I'll believe what David said.
He's not gonna do that, though.
I was going to say, we need to get off our duff and we need to get on an airplane and go to Sacramento. But we do. We are getting crushed as small business people by regulations, rules. People, you have no idea unless you're in small business what we are going through. Every day it changes. We can't keep up. It's becoming horrendous for what we have to go through to stay in business today. So, best thing we can do is, that's why I'm running. I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get on an airplane. If I have to go to Sacramento, I will. If I have to go to LA to meet with DWP, I will. If I have to go to Washington DC, I will. It's time we get off and we do something for Inyo County. We can't just sit there and make it like a country club down there and do whatever. It's time to get out and go to work. It's time to pull up our pants and go to work and do what's right for the people of Inyo County. We need to have representation, and we need to do it now. That's what we need to do. I don't know what else to tell you, but we're getting crushed. When they start busing people in from out of the area, or from Bakersfield for the homeless, because there's so much down there and they think Inyo County can handle it. No, we can't handle it. We need to have a voice. It's time.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel, if I could repeat.
It'd be helpful if you repeat, please.
Our small businesses are being crushed by Sacramento, putting more taxes, fees, safety codes, and higher wages. How do you plan on helping our small businesses?
Yeah. It is a very challenging environment to run a small business, for sure, and particularly in Bishop, we've got some very small businesses, and you know there's a critical size, I think, in a business where it's just you know, a 1 or 2 person business. It would be basically impossible, I think, to deal with the layers and layers of regulations and laws that you need to know about and trainings that you need to give yourself. When you enter into business, you undertake a lot of responsibility, learning about taxation, learning about labor law. As a small business, you don't have the resources to have your own HR department. You know, I'm the chief cook, bottle washer, janitor. I call it facilities maintenance. And this is interesting. In my introduction, I mentioned the American Leadership Forum. Through that organization, 33 years of work, you know, the people who come in that program, it's across all sectors. So it's nonprofit, government, for-profit, corporate heads. You know, back in the day of the Rolodex where you keep your contacts, I have an impressive contact list, if I do say so. And the way I would approach this is I would leverage that, and I would go to Sacramento and give them perspective as a small business owner, and see what they have to say. In my remaining seconds, I'm going to go back to also leveraging education of business owners, the Small Business Center, and I would really like to see not just upstart businesses just starting up, but more existing and long-term business owners become involved with that because they can help each other. Thank you. Ooh, down to a second.
Ms. Jaeger, would you like to repeat your question?
Yes.
Our small businesses are being crushed by Sacramento, putting more taxes, fees, safety codes, and higher wages. How do you plan on helping our small businesses?
Like earlier, when I mentioned that the resources are available to help businesses and also help people that want to start their own businesses, again, that education on entrepreneurship, I think that's one area that can help. Also, the Resource Center and the Job Center, they again will help you navigate those areas to help reduce and supposed to be supportive to businesses and give them some solutions. And again, like any other program, any other business, if they're not, then they need, the county, Inyo County needs to know that. Whoever's running that resource center, if it's not helping local businesses, and it's not helping people prepare to own and start their own businesses here in Inyo County, then that needs to be addressed as well. But those are one resources, there's tools here. Also, you know, since Sacramento was mentioned, I would absolutely go to Sacramento to find out exactly what influence does anyone in Sacramento have specifically on businesses here in Inyo County. What exactly are they able to leverage against any businesses or increase. Because I know that public wages, I mean, wages for businesses are set usually by the owner, and it's usually dependent on having a strong workforce, and you can, you know, pay them on merit if they do a good job, what their starting wages are. So I think there's flexibility also on the wages that was mentioned. Of course, talking about livable wages is also another issue that I think is connected to all of this. This comes down to the economy. Without a strong economy, we're not going to be able to address the struggling businesses, the housing, or the education of our labor force that we need to create with our skilled labor. You know, this is going to take coordination and collaboration with a lot of the other entities in Inyo County, and that has to start now if we want to see a change. And I do want to be a part of that board that begins this change. And, oh, not even on the dot.
Close.
Like, just like Todd.
Okay, next question. Start with, excuse me, Mr. Marcellin. What are your thoughts on the current services available to our elderly community? As a supervisor, how would you help them?
Unfortunately, our elderly community is being taxed right now. With the problems with Amalka that have just currently come to light, and the funding that is the lack of, just like the veterans, we have an issue in Inyo County. And I'm not sure that that's not an issue that's nationwide, but we need to do better. And they looked out for us when we were young. Why aren't we looking out for them when they're older? There's got to be something out there that we can do. There's got to be grants, there's got to be money, there's got to be programs, there's got to be something that we can do to take care of our elderly. I don't have the answer, but we've got to do better. That's why I'm throwing my name in the hat. I see the lack. I see the fact that we have to stick the head in the sand mentality in Inyo County, and if the problem goes away, then great. If it doesn't, then we'll deal with it later. And it's got to stop. We need to do better in Inyo County.
Thank you. Mr. Vogel.
No need to repeat, thank you.
Thank you.
I imagine there are more than a few people in this room who've gone through the process of helping take care of aging parents. And in the past 4 years, my wife comes from a divorced family, so there was, you know, a mother, father, a stepmother, and a stepfather who all decided to go into their decline within the last 2 years. And so, of course, in my 2 minutes, I won't go into detail, but two of the four went through a stepped down process of independent living, assisted living, memory unit, ultimately died. And so the loss of Sterling Heights is just a huge loss, I think, to our community. Is to have to travel so far to take care of people who are in similar facilities. And I don't know that that's a supervisorial power to fix that problem, but we can certainly find answers if there are opportunities there that might attract a similar operation back into town. I think that really is going to need to happen here, somewhere in the Owens Valley. My next question would be, what services are lacking? You know, we need to do an inventory of services that are existing and find the gaps and plug them. It's really important to have these services available to our elderly. And, you know, I think about, thank you, I think about the transportation in town. Is it adequate? I think it's pretty good. Is it doing what it needs to do? Related to the inventory of what are the needs, what are the opportunities? Where can we get some money? There's a lot of infrastructure money about to come down the pipe, and rural communities are disadvantaged because they don't have the infrastructure themselves to go after that money quickly when it starts to become available. You need to be ready.
Thank you. Ms. Jaeger? So I can repeat the question.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the current services available to our elderly community? As a supervisor, how would you help them?
As a supervisor, I would definitely take a look at the current programs that are being offered for the elders in Inyo County. Being raised by my grandmother, I am very passionate about the care for our elders. They deserve compassion and respect. And most importantly, they need to be listened to. So finding those avenues and venues where they're able to give their opinion, to give their feedback, and to let you know exactly what they need. That right there is a struggle because a lot of our elders don't have smartphones. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have sometimes any contact. And so promoting those services to where they have someone visit them, check on them, finding out who the most vulnerable are in your community, and making sure they're getting the services that they need. I know that one of the best ways to help our elder community, and this also is for the, on the Bishop Pike Reservation, is that we have an elders committee. So, you know, helping the elders become organized and structured so that they can have a voice, show up at meetings, and tell everyone exactly what they need. Like Todd was saying, there definitely is funding opportunities out there, and we need to make sure we're reaching at those, getting those, and putting them where they're needed the most. And providing for the elders would be a priority of mine for all communities in Inyo County.
Thank you. Mr. Lent, you mean to repeat the question?
No, I think I got it.
After that.
I believe that working with elders is definitely a priority for all of us in all of our communities up and down the valley. And we as Indian people over the years have always really believed in our elders. We've always given them more of what we have so that they can live safely, and that they're really our guiding light in terms of working with our elder community and listening to what our elders have to say to us. I know that over the years, my grandmother was one of those who really got out in community, and as a result of that, she would say a lot of things to me about what she felt was going on in community, and I really listened to my grandmother. And I listened to other elders that would talk around elder circles and talk about what they knew and what had happened in the past and how they dealt with it going forward. But having worked at Toyabe and working with elders and elders' needs, we would do things like diabetic clinic. We did some in-home care. We would have CHRs that would go out and visit elders out in their homes so that we knew what they were experiencing and how we might be able to help them. I think those programs can be out in all of our communities. And once again, it's a matter of really working collectively to understand what we all know and what we all could do together to make things happen for the elder community, because they are as vital and as important as the youth that we have in our communities today.
Thank you. Mr. Marcellin, floor is yours.
Okay. So in closing, I am running for the people of Inyo County, all the people of Inyo County, for all the districts, not just District 3. I've been fielding calls from people from all up and down the valley already and responding to them. I believe we need to work with DWP and quit fighting with them. This isn't 1921, this is 2022. We need to put the past in the past, and we need to start working with them. One of these days, they're gonna get mad, they're gonna not take that slap in the face, and they're gonna quit donating to us, and they're gonna close the lands that we use to hunt, fish, recreate on. So I think we need to start working with them a little bit. You know, they did us a favor. We don't have LA here. That the land that they have, we don't have houses built on it. We don't have smog here. We can see the beautiful sights that we have. You know, COVID has done a number on this valley with the closures, what has happened. And I've lost touch with my service work, with the elderly. They used to be my favorite people to work with, just to sit, listen to them. We need to lend an ear to them. I enjoyed working with them. I enjoyed listening to what they had to say. We, as in California, has voted for the EV car and solar. Oh, I got cut up on that.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Lent, go ahead.
I'll yield some of my time to him if he needs it.
No, it's all right.
In closing, I would like to say it's really been a pleasure to sit here and give you ideas and listen to everybody's ideas about what they could do for all of us in the county. I'm a person that has gone to Sacramento. I'm a person that's testified in front of Congress in Washington, D.C., and I'm not afraid to do those things. And I think our voice in this community needs to be heard. Up and down the valley, all of us here, our constituents that are in our district definitely have concerns, and those needs need to be met. But I think everybody in our communities in Owens Valley need to be heard. And I think that moving forward and making things happen is vital for us to get out of this county and get into Sacramento, even if we have to go to DC and meet with those lawmakers that may be making decisions that affect all of us in this community. It's important that our voices are heard, that we sit and we listen to you, and you give us the marching orders that we have to move forward with and make happen in this community. COVID has been a real concern in our communities, but we have to heal from it, and I think we are. We may be going back and forth, but we kind of know how to deal with it now. And I think we have to heal. We have to all come together collectively once again. And I think there's power for all of us here if we can just work together, listen to each other, and understand that we all have the same concerns. City of LA is a big concern for all of us, and I think that we can deal with those issues that we have in terms of water, land acquisition, and things of that nature collectively. Right on the dot.
Thank you. Ms. Jaeger.
I just want to take a minute to let everybody know I'm grateful for this opportunity, for everyone to get to know me that wasn't familiar with me or knows who I am. When I'm knocking on people's doors, they didn't know that I was a woman, so I know that I need to get my face out there more, so there's the camera. I'm going to share that on my website. But I want to let everyone know the reason, one of the biggest reasons I'm running is because that representation at that level is needed, and it's needed now. We need someone that can bring us all together to collaborate And in order to meet these challenging times, it's gonna take all of us working together and using all of our resources that each of the communities can offer. That goes from the federal, state, and local levels. There's opportunities out there and available if we work together. Another thing I do want to add, since we're bringing up DWP, it's not about us asking, it's about us requiring. There are agreements in place that DWP is required to comply with, and the days of asking should be over. It's about holding them accountable, and that helps, that starts with that transparency. I think the public, I think everyone in Inyo County should be reminded of what that agreement is, and we should be promoting that and what those requirements are. You know, a lot of violations that are happening right now, they're willing to take the fee or the fine instead of making something right. And I find that that is concerning, and that is one thing that I would fight for, is then we up the fines, we up the fees. Because just because you have enough money to pay off when you're doing something wrong, or something that we're not all aware of, or something we don't agree with, we shouldn't just throw money at it and let it keep going. But that's just another area, because I keep hearing, you know, I love that DWP is a conversation topic. But in closing, I just want to say that I'm easily accessible. If anyone has any questions, please, you know, go to kodyd3.com and ask me anything you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gold.
What was the question again? In my conclusion, I would say thank you again for hosting VFW and organizing, and to everyone who attended. I'm slightly surprised to have found myself genuinely enjoying being part of this tonight. It was, I learned a lot, and enjoyed talking with you all. It's great we have so many qualified candidates. What a luxury, 4 people running that are qualified. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself and go over my qualifications and tell you a little bit about myself. One of the strangest parts about running for office, I'm finding, is you have to talk about yourself so much, which is not a place I'm used to being this much. For every issue we've talked about tonight, there's an opportunity. You can't lose track of the fact that how great a place Inyo County is to live. There's a lot of challenges. Every county has challenges. Together we can find solutions for these. I think my career and experience and service work have prepared me well for the supervisor position. And I'd be happy to further clarify any of my positions or statements and on other issues that we haven't talked about tonight, if anyone would like to reach out. We have pamphlets on the table in the back corner back there with contact info. And of course, I'd appreciate your support in the election, and I want to thank you very much.
Candidates, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity of this today. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, thank you for coming. And we'd also like to thank the Veterans Foreign Wars Post 8988 for hosting this event. Thank you so much. Have